Hi, I'm Lewis Butcher, founder of Chili Digital, and this is the Growth Levers podcast, where we have short, sharp conversations on things that move the needle for growth in some of the most exciting businesses around. Today, I've got Andy, founder at ClickMechanic. Super psyched to have you on. I've known about ClickMechanic for a long time based on my previous roles and previous career. And yeah, you guys have had some exceptional growth, especially recently. So, yeah, awesome to have you on, Andy. Would you like to just give yourself a quick introduction? Tell us a little about who you are, what the business does. It'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on. Andy, one of the founders and CEO of ClickMechanic. So we've been trading now for over 10 years. Originally went through a tech accelerator in London called Entrepreneur First. So we are an online booking platform for mechanics. So as a consumer, you can come on ClickMechanic and within a matter of seconds, you can get a fixed price industry standard quote for whatever repair or service you need. And if you're happy with that, you book in. And then we match you to one of our vetted mechanics who come to you to undertake the repairs. So it's very similar. The user experience is very similar to Uber, and our whole vision is about making car care easy for everyone everywhere. So yeah, that's us.
Awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you've hit about 3 years of kind of 40% plus growth. So obviously, great person to have on the growth levers to talk about growth, as you guys seem to be doing something right there. So yeah, awesome to have you guys on. In terms of, I guess, scale and kind of revenue stage, am I right to understand you guys? I mean, you guys haven't taken on external funding now for quite some time. So in terms of where you are, in terms of, I guess, growth stage and revenue, what does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've been profitable for about 6 years now. So not taking on any investment in that period. And we're still optimizing for top line growth. So we're not trying to throw off any meaningful EBITDA. We're happy if we're operating around about break even, and any retained profits we're throwing into top line growth to really maximize that number. Hence being able to achieve kind of 40% year on year growth. And then obviously at some point in the future, we will look to optimize that bottom line as well as the top line, but doing that from a much higher number will mean we'll have a much stronger bottom line EBITDA ultimately. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, look, let's get into it. This is called Growth Levers. We love to talk about the levers that people are pulling to accelerate that growth. So yeah, I think I mentioned earlier about 40% year on year growth. You continue to reinvest in growth. Just looking back, I guess over the last 12 months, what would you say has been the biggest lever that you guys have pulled from a growth standpoint?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the most important lever I would say is mindset and philosophy, not just any one channel per se. So we're massive advocates for using lean startup methodology and being highly experimental. So whatever we're doing, whether it's experimenting with a new channel or running the 100th experiment on a new channel or doing conversion rate optimization, it's always having that mindset of how can we do this experiment as lean as possible? How can we get it to market as quickly as possible? And what's the hypothesis for the experiment and how can we validate it? And it's about running these experiments. And every quarter we're running dozens and dozens of experiments across the business. And when we get a win, we kind of bake it into our practices, into our growth, into our conversion rate optimization. So I think the first and foremost, the biggest lever is just that mindset and making sure it's not just the growth team or the leadership team who are thinking in that mindset, but it's a philosophy the whole company embrace. So we have a weekly all hands, and every week, like a team lead they'll have a slide, and they'll go through what they're working on. And every week there's always like experiment burn downs, what's been put live, what's finished, what were the results. So everyone's constantly thinking about that, and we have like a defined process where anyone can like pick up, like run an experiment, build a hypothesis doc, run the experiment, get the results, share the results, and people iterate on them as well. So I think that's first and foremost the biggest lever is that mindset. I mean, thinking more practically around specifics of channels, we're very much search driven, not necessarily like discovery based. So when someone has an issue with their car, typically they want to get it resolved very quickly. And the natural go-to, I guess 12 months you would have said, the natural go-to would be Google. Now it's not just Google, it's ChatGPT, other LLMs. So people go to those sources and they'll want a solution quickly because they need to drive to work, do the school run, and if we're doing our job well, we should be there or thereabouts. We should be able to be serving an ad or be at the right place at the right time for consumers. Search is consistently and has always been, whether that's paid search or SEO or LLMs, it's always been a massive lever for us that we're constantly reinvesting into.
And I mean, you touched on it there. How are you, I guess, adapting to this new way of search with all the different language models? I think it's changing almost by the month, especially by the quarter, in terms of how things are moving. Is this now a dedicated kind of stream within your business? How has that changed over the last kind of 6 to 12 months? What are you actively in it? Are you still exploring it? What does that look like at the moment?
Yeah, I think we've, like, for very early on, I mean, even 2 or 3, a couple of years ago, we started looking at this, trying to understand where the opportunities lied, where the risks lied, and what we needed to do. And I think slowly from there, we've kind of been ramping up our kind of exploration of this space and the tools we're using and the strategies and the processes and the tactics, and continually investing into this. So it's not just been a case of we get to, 6 months ago and one day we're like, oh, we need to do something. It's just, I think it's been slowly kind of evolving and morphing and wrapping itself around our business and how we run search. It's still a brave new world. I think the tracking of this and understanding what's important and is still a little bit of a Wild West. It feels like SEO was in the earlier days when you had black hat, white hat. Is a lot of different information out there. I think there's a lot more we need to do, but the team are very well aware of it, and we're constantly having conversations about it and investing into it.
I mean, it sounds like you guys have been on it for a while in terms of being at the forefront of using this stuff. Is that down to, I mean, we mentioned levers, the way in which you guys have a deep testing methodology just baked in the business, that when there's something new, someone's going to bring it up and start working on it in some capacity?
Yeah, completely. So, yeah, we, similar to, like, I guess what Google have with innovation time, we're always fostering, like, innovation is one of our core values of the business. So we're always fostering that. So, for example, the engineering team, 10% of all their time can be spent on whatever they want. So every other Friday, the whole engineering team are working on whatever the projects they want or learning. I think we're constantly allowing the team to kind of express themselves and work on things that they think are most useful. So we also empower the team. Every quarter, every year we will have, like, some company objectives, which is based off the back of kind of retrospectives and team input. And then we kind of, every quarter, we break that down into quarterly objectives and key results that come from the company. And then the team set their own objectives and key results. And they could even have an objective and key result around understanding LLMs, building a strategy around that. That could be an objective for a quarter. So it's really empowering the team to, if they see something as important and that they have the space and time to invest into that, not being told, let's not spend time on that, let's spend time on this. So it's about empowering the team and having innovation as a key cornerstone of our values.
Awesome. Awesome. And I mean, you spoke a little bit about what levers you're trying to pull, and what how other people could be looking to adopt that. But what would you say? So off the back of this kind of way of working, your consistent testing, um, maybe it's you say search is one of the biggest levers you're working on. What would be considered? What would you consider one of your biggest wins of recent? Because I mean, I know the game. You can run 100 tests, and there may only be one or two that really kind of pay real dividends. Just eager to know what's some of the biggest wins you've had more recently, or we go back as much as 6 to 12 months. Be good to know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it's natural the fact that when you're constantly running experiments, literally we've run thousands of experiments in the company, you do get those diminishing returns and trying to eke out those wins. So, where, 5 years ago, if you had a 5 or 10% win, that would be big, or 10% would be huge, right? Whereas in more recent times, if you can get 3 or 4%, that's a big win in itself. I think one of the more bigger wins that we've had over the last sort of 6 to 12 months is probably the integration of buy now, pay later solution. So as we know, car repair can be very expensive. The average order value is £300. Get repairs that go well into the thousands of pounds. So yeah, for the average Joe Blogs, that's not necessarily an amount of money they're going to have easily to hand. And when, as I mentioned earlier, when you consider people need cars to drive to work, to do the school run, sometimes it's kind of a non-negotiable to make sure you can get that car on the road. So with the introduction of buy now, pay later, we've really empowered people to be able to get that repair when they need, without having to do things like potentially get loans from friends and family and so on. It's completely interest free. It's just about spreading those payments. So yeah, we had that gave us a reasonable win, as you'd imagine, on the conversion rate of people coming to our site and then transacting. So yeah.
What made you? I mean, obviously, buy now, pay later as a thing has been around for a while now. What made you pull that trigger more recently? What was there a particular thing that made you do it, or what kind of sparked that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to be honest, it's been on our radar a long time, but unlike regular e-commerce, doing buy now, pay later for automotive repairs is a lot more complex. So with, say, e-commerce, for example, someone wants to buy those pair of shoes, so 50 quid, 100 quid, that's the price of the shoes. Whereas with a car repair, it's a little bit different because it could be initially a £30 or £50 diagnostic. They need to get it diagnosed, and then they need to find out the cost of the repairs. Or, for example, they may book in a £500 clutch replacement, and then they go and actually it needs the flywheel as well, and that's another £200 or £300. So the prices can change, and what someone is initially authorized for is that initial amount. So there's some complexity there from a tech perspective in terms of those amounts needing to change. So we understood very early on, if we wanted to work with one of the main buy now, pay later providers out there like a Klarna, it wasn't going to be straightforward. We weren't going to be able to use our existing payment gateway. So there had to be, to offset the cost and the time commitment to build a solution, there had to be a really solid win there. So it wasn't just a case of, we think this is a good idea, we're going to do it. We initially did a lot of kind of desk research to look at what we should expect from terms of conversion wins and what the market's saying in terms of how people value buy now, pay later. Then we did our own sort of primary research in terms of surveying customers, our own customers, finding out what the uptake we think it might be, how valuable it might be for customers. And then this led to doing some smoke tests on site. So don't know if you're familiar with smoke tests, where you don't necessarily have add the feature to the site, but you might have a button, which might say, buy this with buy now, pay later. And if you can infer what the uptake may be by people clicking that option, and then you have some sort of simple message there saying this isn't available at the moment. So we did this various kind of research, this sort of smoke testing, and then from there we built enough confidence that we could estimate the value of this as a new offering for us. And then we spoke to a number of different new payment providers, payment gateways, and we did a piece of work to understand how long it would take and what the cost it would incur to integrate this to the business. And it was basically a basic cost benefit analysis. Ultimately, it made sense. The project ended up being a lot more meaty than we'd have anticipated, as is often the case.
Is there ever the case where it's the opposite? I don't think so.
Completely. So it ran on. So we were very thankful to get that one over the hill. But yeah, it's been a big win for us, and it's great for our customers. We're all about making car care easy for everyone, and that's just another way to make it easier.
So you're seeing meaningful conversion boosts off the back of.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, double digit percentage. Yeah, it's really
Awesome.
really made a difference, and really sort of playing into our kind of value proposition and our vision for what we want to do and enable for our customers. Exactly.
That's awesome, man. I mean, one thing that really stands out to me there is your whole approach to this is that this is probably good for our customers. It will probably boost conversion rate, so we'll just fling it in, which is what a lot of people's like stack of next to dos are like. Whereas you guys have come at this a completely different way, arguably the complete correct way. I've worked with clients in the past on this in particular where they've had it added. It's been on there for months. The buy now pay later, and they couldn't tell me what impact it's had on conversion rate. We're not sure actually. It's like, okay, well, you need to know that, because if it hasn't made an impact on your conversion rate, you're now just paying a higher fee for all the transactions that people are using it for. So, yeah, like it's great to hear that you guys have a proper process on that, and I think that it's that type of methodology that all bakes up to those big 40% year-on-year growth, and not just doing stuff for the sake of doing it and hoping it works. Awesome, man. I mean, I think a lot of people can learn from that, especially the smoke tests. I think a lot of people go, how do we test this? We're just going to have to get it live and test it. Having a simple, just measuring how many clicks are coming in, so that is a big indication of whether that's something of interest. So, also that's really interesting. What is something over the past 12 months, it could be a bit further back, that you would perhaps, now that something's been done, what would you perhaps do differently? I mean, there's always these kind of things that pop up and go, if I go back 12 months or 18 months, I probably would have done this a bit differently. From what I'm learning already in this 20 minutes is that you guys have a very diligent approach to most things. I wonder if there's anything that you guys probably could have done that a bit differently.
Yeah. From a growth perspective.
Growth, I mean, a lot of things are encompassed within growth nowadays. So if you want to go on the outskirts, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. God, there's probably a lot. I mean, one that springs to mind actually is a new function we spun up a couple of years back, which was a sort of affiliate partnership function. So I had two great guys into that role and that function, both very experienced in partnerships and affiliates. Did a great job getting new affiliates and partners on board. And we really went quite ambitious on this new channel. Obviously, when you launch a new channel, there can be often a lot of low hanging fruit there, and we were quite aggressive in terms of what we were acquiring. One of the categories we were working with within that were kind of discount code sites, and which can offer a lot of volume, which we thought was great on first glance. We're like, okay, great, they're bringing loads of volume. But actually, a bit further down the road, when we started doing some audits on some of the accounts, we were like, actually, how incremental is this? Are we just cannibalizing sales with some of these affiliates? Would they have transacted anyway? You know, that's often when some consumers see a promo code box on a website, they're like, wow, okay, that's yeah, it's like candy to a baby, right? They're like, right, let's get on the internet, let's find this promo
these
code.
ones like get onto Google and find myself a discount code.
Exactly. So, and we had a number of these, I think, and there was a variance in the performance of some of them, but actually when we really crunched the data and really looked at some of the tracking and some of the attribution, some of it was a little bit questionable, and we really went through all the accounts with a fine-tooth comb to ensure all the accounts we did have were offering incremental bookings to the business, not just cannibalizing our margin. And what we found is when we did that exercise, we were able to make a 5-figure sum saving on commissions that we're paying out to different affiliates, while maintaining revenue and even making revenue kick on to the next level. So yeah, I think data, we are very data-led and data-driven, as I mentioned before, but sometimes you have to peel back the onion another layer to make sure the data is what you think it is.
Because I've got a question towards the end that we'll probably dive a bit deeper into this. So I'm glad you've brought that up. Okay, so next question. So I guess, again, getting a little bit more technical on certain bits, but one thing that I'm keen to hear on, you've mentioned large language models and AI, the impact on search, but how are you leveraging AI more so within the business as well? So not necessarily, how you're showing up in large language models, but how are you looking to use AI within the business to aid growth and operations and the like?
Yes, I guess it's a really relevant and really important question that most companies are asking at the moment, right? And there's certainly a lot more we want to do, but we're certainly doing a lot. So I think the natural port of call for ourselves has been leveraging it within operations. We want to scale as efficiently as possible. Ops cost per completed booking, we want to, it's one of our key KPIs. We want to see it come down over time, not go up. And then obviously as that's coming down, that gives you more margin to reinvest into growth. So it's a growth lever in itself. So yeah, we've invested heavily into leveraging AI in operations, whether that's AI chatbots, whether that's AI automation of answering emails, and other uses. And we've been able to kind of, over the course of doubling our revenue over the last couple of years, we've been able to not make any additional hires to operations team and keep ops costs the same. So, which has been a massive win for us on a number of levels. So, yeah, I think first and foremost, we've been leveraging it into our operations, but increasingly we're looking at ways of how we can really leverage AI into our core product. And we've started doing bits there. So, for example, within our quoting, actually, we've been doing this for some time now. We've been leveraging kind of ML within our quoting system to kind of optimize some of our quotes for consumers to make sure they're optimized for both the consumer and the mechanic. So yeah, there's areas we're using it across ops and within the product, but there's a lot more we know we want to do and can do. I think another challenge around of it is just upskilling people. So like a lot of people obviously are used to using LLMs for asking kind of random questions and getting answers back, but I think the power of LLMs, when you're talking about the power and what they can do, you're just scratching the surface. When you look at other people who are using, like, setting up agents to do various tasks that could take humans hours, they can do it in a matter of seconds. So we've started kind of upskilling our team. We've got some of our team who are quite inquisitive anyway and have been using agents to optimize things, but we've started getting some of our team members on, who want to, that is, who on courses where they can, with experts, where they can really understand the power of AI and creating their own agents to do their own activities and really get some efficiency wins on the board. So we've got a couple of the team now going through a course and they found it enormously valuable and they're getting wins already just a couple of weeks in. So yeah, lots we're doing, loads more we can do and need to do. So I think that's where we're at in our journey.
Yeah, I think that's the type of answer I'm getting to from a lot of businesses. It's about operational cost is where a lot of the wins are, right? And that's what everyone's talking about around AI. It's how do we do even the how can we scale with keeping our ops costs at where they are or even lower? And that's what you've kind of mentioned that if you can have an AI agent to do the job that of a task that used to take a couple of hours for someone a week, and then you're scaling, and that's going to go up to 2, 3, 4 hours, and an agent could take off your hands. That's then 4 hours that can be done. Be focused on something else, and that's where I think the real gains come. Especially if your ethos within the business is to be testing and learning new things, it frees up time to be focusing on other things that can really kind of move the dial, for sure. One thing I guess it's kind of been filtered through some of the answers, some of the questions we've been talking about, and will probably come up again later on as we continue speaking. But attribution and attribution across platforms, and I mean, you're speaking to a digital marketing native, and I know there's no true perfect attribution that exists, but how are you managing it? I mean, obviously you mentioned the trouble you had with affiliates. You're obviously spending tons of money on the likes of Google Search. I'm sure there's a ton of other channels you're on actively and will be exploring as well. How do you approach attribution? What's your relationship with it? And how is it kind of embedded in the business?
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's really, really tough. I mean, yeah,
So
I mean,
how many channels are you guys operating on at the moment? I guess is a good place to start.
yeah. So I think we're primarily, obviously, search, SEO, email, affiliates, partnerships, bit on Meta. We dabble with a few other sort of channels here and there. In the past, we've done a little bit of out of home. So yeah, I think they're the kind of like main
A
sort of
lot,
channels.
right?
Yeah, a lot,
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, the lion's share of our spend goes through search, and yeah, we're very hot on click attribution. It's very, yeah, we have a very simple kind of setup where we're tracking clicks, seeing what converts, and we're quite ruthless with that, um, making that kind of stack up and making it accountable for itself. And I think that's part of the challenge why we've struggled maybe a little bit with some other channels where you need to be a little bit more creative on the attribution, like whether it's the tracking windows or whether you're using view through transactions or click through or yeah, I think there's definitely been some other challenges on some of those channels, and there needs to be a little bit of interpretation sometimes. Whereas the channels where you see a click, you see it transacts, but then an hour it's like you can't, it's indisputable, right? So that's why we've really, really kind of optimized and really invested the lion's share of our spend and knowledge and mind share there. But yeah, we're not. I think as we expand and move forward, I think we really need to get more comfortable at like looking at other creative attribution for other channels, whether it's like YouTube, like I guess more above the line type channels, right? Whether it's video, YouTube, potentially TV in the future, radio, and start looking at other attribution models or MMM to really be a little bit more creative that can give us the justification for these other channels and then invest into them. But yeah, we have a whole team working on a whole new consent type framework and platform this quarter. I'm not like super involved with that, but yeah, I see the work that's going on there, and it's like, yeah, it's super complex, super time consuming. Also, we can be really confident in our attribution and invest in the right things. So yeah, you're probably not speaking to the right person who's the expert in attribution, but what I do know is we invest into what we're confident at, and we're really trying to get more confident in other models that will give us the means to invest in other channels.
Yeah, we've been spoilt that we've kind of our careers have been in this area of digital marketing where yeah, it's not the Mad Men era where like there was none of this existed and you had to put out a campaign, and if there were sales, there were sales. If there were bumps in the graph, there were bumps in the graph. It's we've been spoiled, especially over the last kind of 10, 15 years, where I can see exactly where the click started and where it ended. It's definitely getting harder, but you sometimes have to catch yourself that this is relatively new, that we're able to attribute how people are thinking and how we managed to capture their transactions. And when we're speaking with Gusto, they obviously do. They're spending tons of money on paid media, but they also spend lots of money on out of home and big out of home pieces, TV, and more recently investing a lot in organic social media as well, and figuring out how that is impacting those other channels. Because if you just see everything in silo, then you're going to underappreciate certain channels. So yes, it's super important to be managing them across the board, and understanding how they influence one another. What's what's one thing, I guess the first best way to phrase this is within your setup. I mean, there's obviously 101 things you guys are working on. What's the one thing in your setup? I mean, it sounds like you've got quite an intricate, detailed way of doing things in the business. But what's one thing in your setup that took the longest to get right? That you can say now, like, we're great at this, and this is what we do great. We're good at this, or we're happy with how we do this. But what was it that took quite a while to get right?
In terms of growth or the business as a whole, or
I mean, let's try and stick to growth, I guess. Whether that's from the reporting standpoint, whether it's a channel, whether it's how you test, whether it's certain methodologies or is it team structure or
yes, that's a good question. There's a couple of things that really spring to mind. I think, again, sort of touching on what I mentioned earlier, like right at the beginning when you're saying what's the biggest lever, and I spoke about a mindset. I think what's the most important thing for our business now is like what are the really important things. I think first of all it's the foundation of the culture, and getting that right. So now we hire for culture as much as anything as someone's capability. If not, that's probably more important than capability. Yeah, so making sure we have people who align to our kind of cultural values, who will work well with the rest of the team, and I think having that bedrock of people aligned to your culture is really, really important. I think from there, working up from like the culture piece, I think it's then having the right structure in place for teams to do their best work, and be aligned to what the company wants to achieve. And there's a couple of things we do there. First of all, we operate we call like a hyper flexible work setup. So we used to have offices in like Hammersmith. COVID happened, we went remote. We were like, actually, we're still hitting all our KPIs. This is working well. So we did a bunch of anonymous surveys through the team through a good 6-month period. Like, what would be the ideal setup for those guys? Do they want to return to the office full time? Do they want to stay at home full time? What do they want? I think overwhelmingly, as you'd expect, people wanted the optionality and the flexibility. So that's what we created. We created a work setup where the team can leverage and work from an office whenever they want. They have that capability. Or they can work from home whenever they want. So, and it's all about being aligned behind the company's objectives and team objectives, and meeting them first and foremost. And where you do that and how you do that, we're not overly concerned about. We have some team members, for example, our head of growth, Kurt, he's Dutch. He'll often might go and work from the Netherlands for a month or a couple of weeks here. but fundamentally he's still doing the same work. He's just in a different place, and that enables him to spend some time with his family there, his friends, and he knows what his objectives are, and he can do that from
And
wherever.
how do you mentioned a lot about culture, and how do you, I think so many people want to crack it. Like, how do you ensure, especially now in a world where everyone's very remote, like, how do you ensure that your cultural values within the business and how you want people to work are ingrained and people work in the way
Yeah,
or embody those when previously in a time before COVID, it might be everyone in the office and certain characters really kind of banging the drum on certain things and get-togethers to reiterate stuff. How do you do that now? And I guess it's the bedrock of being able to have so much success in a hybrid or remote working setup.
yeah. I think first and foremost it comes down to the first key thing is the who you bring into the organization. So you need to make sure they're culturally aligned. So what we will typically do is we'll have the regular kind of interview process, where say for a role they need to do a presentation on a particular element of their role, and they'll do that presentation. They'll get marked on that criteria. And in some scenarios, you might get someone who's like amazing, and in most organizations they would be like ticking a box, that's the person, let's just hire them. What we do in every single role we hire for is we have something called culture interviews, so that this person will have literally 3 or 4 round robin interviews with 2 different members of the team at the same time. So there could be another 6 to 8 members of the team who meet this person, and these are short round robin interviews, and this is just to get a sense of who that person is. Will they work well with the rest of the team? How do they communicate? And it's so fascinating doing these culture interviews because you get such great insights, and sometimes you can find a candidate who you may have thought could be a good fit, but actually they're not, and your team has helped you do that. So essentially, you've got a very collaborative way to hire these people. And then if you do get a candidate who everyone's bought into, the whole team's vested into that candidate and into their success, and they feel part of that recruitment process. So I think that's the first part. And I think if you get that right, I would say that's 80% of the battle, if I'm honest, or 70% of the battle. And then I think once you do that, and if the company culture is already solid and people are rowing in the right direction and they're aligned and there's a good working environment, it's collaborative, then I think it becomes really easy because they will fit into that, the new hire, and then you just keep rowing in that formation. And and I think every year we have a people rep survey, anonymous, like what we're doing well, what can we do better, how do you rank different things, what do you want more of, what do you want less of. I think listening to your team like goes a long way, and then you can adapt and correct course. And those typically over previous years, last years, the scores we get back on those anonymous surveys are really high, so we know the team are engaged. Our attrition is next to zero, so we have a lot of knowledge in the team. And then I think it's we have 4 values that we live by, and we have employee of the month, that's people vote for their other team members on these criteria, and it just weaves itself into everything we do in terms of our values. So I think it's just being really intentional around everything you do around culture, and I think if you get that right, then that just makes everything so much easier because everyone's rowing in the right direction. And then I think layering as a foundation that's there, then layer on top of that, it's around having a framework where everyone knows which ways the company's doing and how their work impacts that. So we use like the objectives and key results framework, which Google made famous. So
Yeah.
we have our annual objectives and key results. Well, actually, it stems. Our first phase of this is the 1-page strategic plan. Have you heard of that before?
Potentially, maybe under a different name, but
yeah, it's what's the scaling? There's a book that was really popular. I think it was I can't remember what it's called, but like the bedrock of that was having a 1-page strategic plan. So we have this 1-page strategic plan which outlines or like vision, mission, values, like 3 year like plans, targets, 1 year plans, objectives, and then we kind of distill that down into, like, we have our annual objectives, and then we have quarterly objectives, and every quarter we have like a planning 2 week period right at the end of the quarter for the following quarter, which basically involves all the team leads doing a retrospectives on what's on the past quarter, which will include what's gone well, what's not gone well, what are the opportunities, what are the threats, and each of them like gives their sort of presentation to the leadership team. We have a chat about it, and then we can understand what's really important to each team. And off the back of that, then the leadership team essentially set what are the company objectives and key results for the coming quarter. And typically there would be 2 to 3 objectives, each with 2 or 3 key results. We present that to the team, and then they go away and set their own company team objectives for the coming quarter. And then every week they kind of give a confidence score on each of their objectives between 0 and 10, how confident they are of hitting them. So I think just having that framework just creates like open dialogue around what we should be working on. It enables us to set some clear objectives that everyone understands, and it allows teams to set their own objectives, which they're empowered to do and they own. And then there's real accountability around that as well. And then and then the thing, I don't want to say it runs itself, but it largely does kind of run itself to a degree in that regard once all those things are in place.
I think if you do that, if you get your planning, I mean, I'm a big fan of objectives, key results, structure. Every business I consult for, I advise them to adopt it. We were big on it at Founders Factory in my time there. And yeah, if you get that right and you do it properly, then it does largely run itself. Everyone, because everyone's working towards the same direction. And when you've got everyone moving in the same direction, and you hiring well, and your culture kind of sorts itself out as well to a degree. Like it's getting everyone in the same direction, moving in the same direction, feeling part of a journey, and not siloed. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Just a couple more things I want to just whirl through, but first one being, and this is just a quick one. Obviously, growth generally, and I mean startups as just put it more broadly. There's a ton of tools we have available to us. There's almost a new SaaS tool or a new thing launched every month. But what are the free tools that you personally couldn't do without right now? If I took them away from you, what would ruin your day or ruin your week?
Yeah, one new tool I've started using, it's I wouldn't say it's free forever, but I did have a 30-day free trial initially and found it to be remarkably helpful, was Granola. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I use it.
See, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
My notes on like, what was that again? So yeah, I've started using that a few months ago and found that enormously valuable for going back over old notes or sharing notes with other teammates that aren't just gobbledygook.
Yeah, it's awesome. I spoke to it was the marketing director or the head of marketing there probably about 12 months ago now. We were chatting on ads and Facebook and Google ads. And I hadn't heard of it at that point. So it was my first kind of like foray. I was like, okay, what's this? And then since then, I started using it, and now everyone's using it. And I think it's a really good sign of a product that spreads and grows because it's very good. As opposed to like, oh, it's just loads of marketing. So actually, like, it's just really good, and people tell each other like, I use this, it's really good. It's got great product-led growth. Yeah, it's awesome. So Granola, that's one.
Granola, obviously Slack, got to be in Slack. What other tools am I using that are game changers? Yeah, God, maybe I should be using more tools. Obviously, ChatGPT is always a go-to to get,
Yeah.
I should be using it probably more in a.
Are you team ChatGPT over team Claude? Do you chop and change? Do you use both?
Yeah, I've used a bit of Claude, but yeah, I come back to ChatGPT. It's actually got
Yeah.
a nickname, Chad. So, I don't know how that came about, but it's me and my friends call him Chad.
Nice.
Him, it's Chad. Yeah, no, no,
Chad Slack and Granola being
yeah,
the
Chad. Yeah, they're the big three. Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not somebody who's always seeking out the next tool
yeah.
for finding efficiency wins or whatever it is. If someone strongly recommends something to me, I'll
Take a look.
like granola. But yeah, I think those three. Without those three, yeah,
Yeah.
my work life would be a lot more challenging.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, that's pretty much everything that I was keen to cover with you. One thing we do at the end of each session is we ask we ask the guest to essentially leave a question for the next guest. So I've got our last guest's question here, and I said I'd be coming back to this topic because you started dipping your toe into it earlier on in the podcast. But the question is, when you look across your channels, how do you think about which ones are actually driving incremental growth versus just capturing demand you'd have got anyway? And does that picture change with seasonality? So I think we really kind of dipped into this earlier around some of the affiliate stuff, and you mentioned that you kind of went through channel by channel to really understand. I guess the thing here, the question here is, yeah, how do you go about doing that, and how do you really kind of understand what's incremental?
Yeah, I imagine, and you said that was from a team member from Gusto.
That's Gusto, yeah.
Yeah, so I can imagine those guys are running every channel under the sun with some it will be highly attributable, and they'll know how incremental it is, whereas
Yeah,
others will
they
be
were
open.
particularly interested on like how it changes because obviously they have seasonality demands. In the new year, everyone's like new year, new me, and they were, yeah. Paul was particularly interested in like how do people adapt to that kind of incrementality of channels, and is there an element of this channel's doing really well since we launched it, or is it because we're in a very like good seasonal period? Yeah, I don't know if you've got any opinions on that, and how people can address it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we're so as mentioned earlier, we're really focused on the channels where it's all about click attribution, but increasingly we're moving towards channels where that attribution piece can be a bit more challenging. And I think one of the real key ways where you can overcome that issue is with holdout tests. So you should probably know, pick a area of the country that's your control, one that's a variable, and you just focus all your ad spend in where the variation is, and then that can and you compare it against the control, and that can weed out any variations you might see in seasonal demand. So I think holdout tests are largely the gold standard when it comes to that. We do some holdout tests we do some for our mechanic acquisition. We do YouTube and Meta, and we're constantly doing holdout tests there because often you're not going to get that that click attribution, and we've really found that with YouTube where there's next to no click attribution, but where we do areas with holdout tests, we do see when we run those experiments, we do see a real marked spike in terms of applications coming into those areas whereas the control won't necessarily see that. So I think, yeah, for us, holdout tests are really, really, really important to do that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Andy. This has been Growth Levers. I won't keep you any longer, but thanks very much. Really, really great conversation. You guys are clearly doing some really cool stuff over there at ClickMechanic. And yeah, onwards and upwards, and hopefully another year of exceptional growth for you guys.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, thanks for
Awesome,
having me
man.
on. It's been great to chat, and yeah, good luck. Talk soon.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Bye.